are now listening to United 96 Podcast on the RFK Refugees Podcast Network.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to United 96 here on the RFK Refugees Podcast. Ted here, John here to give our season end recap of this corpse of a 2020 season that was long dead and buried ever. I think I've used the word autopsy before, but I'm going to go ahead and use it again. This is going to be the document that John has written to review the season. If you see this man out in a bar, please buy him a drink. He watched every single highlight from every single game. He wrote summaries of every single game this year. He did it all in unbelievable fashion. So this man, this man is crazy. I do not think my soul could take it. Maybe it's because the Kickers are regular season champions and, preparing for a playoff game that I was like, I don't need that negativity weighing me down. I'm just going to spare that for an hour. Just kidding. I got to do the Spirit. I'm doing the Spirit recap. So that'll be coming next week, by the way, if you're wondering where that is and you're listening to this show first, that'll be next week. That was a game time decision because we want to give this 2022 season the hate / maybe some hope. Maybe we'll sprinkle some hope in there. Well, if we find any, we'll definitely let you know. So, John, first, how you doing, my friend? How was your weekend?
Oh, I mean, it was great doing all of the highlight watching. It was fantastic. I feel like it was very Clockwork Orange. I felt like I was propping my own eyes open and torturing myself watching this game, watching all of these games. I hung out with my baby all day by myself on Sunday. That was enjoyable. That was a good day. But other than that, watching a lot of baseball, which I know you hate. I got to be honest. After DC United's last game, I've not watched any MLS. I'm in no position to talk about MLS playoffs whatsoever. I think you watched a little bit this weekend, right?
I did watch. I finally had a moment, I guess, to myself. Saturday was a busy day. Obviously, went to the Richmond Kickers game. So even though the games are 12-3, hung out with my niece and nephew from my wife's side. So I was busy with them on Saturday. So I did not get a chance to really watch the games. I kind of kept up with it a little bit. And then, of course, Sunday I sat down. I did actually watch both the games then. So I watched a little bit MLS Cup playoffs. I've got a New York City FC and Inter Miami on the round. New York City just scored a goal, played at Citi Field. So that was my weekend, celebrating the joys of watching a team win a championship. I'm sorry, I'm not bragging about it. I'm just avoiding the negativity that's going to come over the next hour or so. However long this podcast goes, it's going to be a long one.
It should be a long one. So before we start getting into the nitty gritty, because I said I would do this, I asked all of you on Twitter to give me a 5-word summary of the season, which is a lot faster than what I had to do. But I said I would read them, and I thought we'd maybe get like 10. We got more than 10. I'm going to whip through these at a quick pace. Otherwise, we're going to be here all night long. So again, remember, the prompt was 5 words about the 2022 DC United season. I'm not going to read the names because, again, too many. Here they are. Here we go. In no order other than in chronological order from when we got them. What is that I smell? They said playoff caliber roster. Quotes, we have a playoff team. All downhill after kit sponsor. Front office obviously doesn't care. It's not in the net. That's a good one. So glad it's over now. Month late and dollar short. Levian, Kaplan, Casper, kick rocks. I like that one. A little alliteration. Everyone and everything must go. That was the most liked, I think, of all of these. League has passed us by. Need a beer for that. Thought that was good. Money laundering front for owners. Casper out. Levian out yesterday. Focus on the regular season. That was a good one. Had to root for Cincy. Dave Casper at your service. Disjointed, underachieving, technically inept play. That was just words. Sell the team, Jason Levian. Benteke pockets full, dead club. We'll get back to the Benteke pockets full part of that in a minute or in some minutes. What then when Rooney leaves? I thought good. Did not get a lot of love, but I think that was pretty good. These jokers also decimated Swansea. That is a person from Richmond. I assume that would maybe be somebody from Wales, but no, somebody from Richmond. There is always next year. Wooden spoons do not melt. How is Casper not out? Eternally waiting for next year. Sometimes shit, sometimes maybe good. Season lost is hope too.
Wait,
Yours, go ahead.
wait. The last one.
Oh, you're right.
What
That was too many words. No, that wasn't. That wasn't. You're saying it's never maybe good.
when is the maybe good part come? Can this person, if you're listening right now, please call into the show and please tell me what the maybe good part of this season was. Please, I really want to know. I really want to know the maybe good part of this season.
Maybe it'll come up when I talk about every single game in minute detail.
I very much doubt it, but yeah, I love your optimism, John.
No, I know. 2023's DC United's worst season ever. Totally, completely, absolutely, unfathomably inept. That's the right amount of words. Sad, horrible. Oh, wow, this one's even an acrostic. Sad, horrible, impotent, taxing, embarrassing. It's spelled shite if you do it vertically. So good job, Joe. Agitate for change of ownership. Promise to send it into hell. There's no plan. Never was. I like that one. Does anyone even care anymore? Clearly, some people care enough to do all these poems. A very large dumpster fire. Painful, unending character building exercise. I like that one. The death of a community since punting the Open Cup. ... Did other things with time. Lasada gets the last laugh. Overpaid additions disappoint again. That was good. Worst team in the league. True. Did someone say Open Cup? Sell the team, Casper out, and some things are better unsaid. Oh, there's still more since I started this. Proof that Casper must go and dumpster fire, reboot, dumpster fire. That's good too. That's the last one in. Dumpster fire, reboot, dumpster fire is good. So everyone feels really good about it. Everyone enjoyed it and had a good time. Yeah. I mean, how could you not?
Yeah.
So why don't we get started?
Yeah.
We are, by the way, for the few of you who are watching live, we are going to go through the roster and cake or death. We're not going to do that because I feel like that's other people's thing. We didn't have time to think of a cool branding. It's keep or get rid of. So we'll do that. We'll do that after the recap. By the way, some people, no one asked for this. Ted didn't ask me to do this. Nobody on Twitter was like, wouldn't it be really good if we walked through every game of the season? I felt like I had to do this to explain to myself how bad the season really was. Because sometimes you forget. Like, yeah, you see the record, you see the points, you see the wooden spoon, you're like, wow, this is a bad season. It's the worst one ever. But when you really get through it and look at every goal they concede and how it's conceded, good Lord, it was a horrible season. This team needs to be broken up for parts. It won't be, but it needs to be. So before I start, Ted, any last words? I know where we should start this. How did you feel? If you remember, what we could have, again, with more planning, gone back and listened to the episode before the season started about our hopes. Do you remember sort of your vibes before the season started?
I mean, the vibes were, it's really, the vibes were, it felt like, regardless of everything, that this team did have, with or non Lasada, this team had an identity. And, looking back on it, looking back on the players that became free agents, didn't return, obviously the Paul Arriola situation, all of it in sort of hindsight, I think really spelled really how much trouble this team was in. And I remember thinking, that, okay, we saw an identity. It's really tough to remember. Like I might go back and watch some of those games if I can find them from 2021, just when this team looked like it had found its groove. It was on fire. Then it was just like, okay, just build upon this year. And that's what I thought, was going to happen in a certain sense. We signed Taxi Funtas. It looked like he was going to come early. And I said, okay, once he gets here, we'll see how he does. Maybe this will all be okay. I think, honestly, we should have been, maybe more skeptical. And honestly, I believe this year we're going to be, this coming season, off season, we are going to be wildly more skeptical of everything.
Well earned, really.
And we'll get into the back half of the season, but I think we got, the wool sort of, pulled over our eyes, and it it's really, yeah, it's really hard, I guess, it's really hard to quantify, because looking back on it now, you're like, yeah, clearly this team had issues, but it's also the beginning of the season. You still have hope.
Yep.
You're trying to figure out, you want to have the feelings. You said, well, I had these feelings in 2021 when this team was flying high. It looked like they were going to challenge for the top of the East. They were third place in the East at one point. And you're like, they kind of all fell apart. Now they've got a full off season. They're going to, regroup. So you kind of had this hope that the system and the identity that Losada was instilling in the team, that he had guys bought in, was going to sort of maybe overcome some of the deficiencies in the roster. And we learned, probably should have known from games 1 and 2, that something was very, very much wrong with this team. And what they did was not good enough as far as getting replacements back in. Obviously, we know the leaving of Paul Arriola, I think, took the entire front office with their pants down. And I don't know if they'll ever admit that, but I think they were wildly unprepared to replace him. And that really should have been the first red flag when we entered the season and we got through the window and there was no subsequent Paul Arriola replacement. And yeah, it's really hard to look back and I had hope. I had thoughts that, I think we were going to be fine. I thought playoffs were a possibility if they got some help, maybe in the summer window. But it was all just basically ready to crumble apart. And the way it crumbled apart was, I don't think I've ever seen a soccer team crumble the way DC did over a season. It was like watching a train wreck week in and week out.
So let's start this off. Aaron Losada, to that end, said, this is a quote from right before the last preseason game of the preseason. He said, the roster is still incomplete. We're still looking, and I really hope those pieces are coming, because that is the difference between playoffs or not. That's the difference between arriving in the playoffs and being competitive and arriving in the playoffs and getting kicked out in the first round. We still need that extra piece of quality. By the way, that is a subtextual Hernan Losada also saying this is a playoff roster. So before you want to just get mad at Lucy Rushton, Hernan also said it in his own special way at the beginning of the season. I was looking back, trying to see, we talked about Paul Arriola leaving, Kevin Paredes left, and I was trying to look at the beginning of the season who had been added. And the answer, I believe, is just Jafal and Brad Smith. I do not believe there were any other players added in that summer window or in the winter window before the season started.
You forgot about what's that?
Who else? I'm asking who else was that?
The Ecuadorian forward who is no longer
Michael Estrada.
Michael Estrada, yep.
How did I forget?
Taxi was announced but was not arriving until the summer, but yes.
So it wasn't that quote is legit, right? If you look at that roster and how it sort of played out, and then also all of the money that was spent in the window, the last window of the year, really sort of legitimizing that, like, this team is bereft of talent in a lot of ways. Anyway, so that happened. That was said. The big conversation that was happening before the season was, we've got to get rid of Ola Kamara. He's got trade value. We need to make sure that we get value for him. Spoiler alert: we kept him the entire season, and he had not a 2019 Ola Kamara season, but he had a decent Ola Kamara season, or 2020.
And I want to go back to that. I think that is proof that we always talked about with Dave Casper. When a lot of people wanted him gone, in the RFK days, and always the argument was, well, he's a wizard at navigating the MLS market, finding good deals, getting guys out, getting value from certain players. He knows that market. And the fact that they made it known they wanted to trade Ola. Maybe there were offers that came in, but the offers were not near as what they maybe were expecting. And so then they just decided to keep him. I think also Michael Estrada, I think from the first few games, I think they kind of knew that Michael Estrada wasn't going to be good enough. And so they were like, well, I think if Michael Estrada had blown up the league, they would taken whatever offers they got. I couldn't believe that they actually would not have gotten at least a couple offers for Ola Kamara. But the fact that they could not they made that known and then just couldn't get it done is such an utter failure on the team.
Imagine if they had gotten rid of him, by the way.
Yeah.
He was the leading scorer on the team, I'm pretty sure. So that's not great. I think also that's of note from a Dave Casper's perspective. If he's so great, why was at the beginning of the season the conversation centered around the fact that this team had no cap room left and the team was not good, and he had all these players coming into their big seasons of their contract all at once? Yeah, which required a trade later on in the season that we'll talk about. But so is not finding good players on the international market, is now starting to spend more, but spending it potentially unwisely, as we'll get into in the roster recap. It was just a matter of he's running out of excuses. And I think that the assemblage of this team at the start of the season was a good point of it. There also was no backup for Bill Hamid at that point. John Kempen was your man, and that was, they had no third goalie, I believe, at the time. So that was another sort of the conversation when the season started. First game of the season, the victory. Hernan Losada opens the 2022 season with a 3-0 win at Charlotte at home. By the way, you talked about it, Michael Estrada not being good enough sort of early. This would probably be one of his best games, or at least his most productive game. Scored a penalty and scored a goal that deflected off a defender's butt. And we all thought, oh, this is the guy. This is great. We don't need Ola Kamara anymore. Ola also scored in that game.
Yep.
And Bill Hamid played well. Played probably one or two of his best performances of the year based on stats and sort of keeping a clean sheet, which were very rare, as you'll see as we go along. So, if you're counting at home, go ahead.
I will say I wasn't ready to throw the season out. I was like, I think there were still some, at least a couple guys coming off injury. But how we looked against an expansion team, because now again, Charlotte later in the year proved to be a pretty formidable opponent, and we got trounced by them on the road in Charlotte. So they looked like a pretty good opponent. So I want to say, but that first game, you have basically an entirely new team that's never really played a competitive match together. And you are a team that has now had a full year under your head coach. You had a system that was very effective. To watch them come up, and they won 3-0. So the scoreline was incredibly deceiving.
Yep.
Because they did not look it throughout that game. I remember leaving that game thinking we might be in trouble. This is not looking good.
Charlotte was struggling to find 18 players for that first game. So again, scoreline flattered to deceive.
And their coach also got fired at the beginning of the year. That was one of his last few games. So not a great look in how they played. So
always a recipe for being fired by complaining about how much your owners are not spending money on players. So lesson learned by no one. It will be repeated next year and next year and next year. Second game of the season. So we're gonna do a in-season point tracker. 3 points in the first game. Second game, first game on the road, another 3 points. FC Cincinnati, a team that up till this season was perennially wooden spoon winners and just kind of always sucked no matter what. This was a VAR confirmed red card for Moses Nyman. One of the last times you'll see him in a DC United uniform. His career is pretty much in a DC United uniform is remembered by a Guardian article and then a couple red cards. That's basically what he has to show for his DC United career, which is a bit of a bummer, but it is what it is. Again, Hamid having a great game, made multiple saves that kept FC Cincinnati off the score sheet, and a 98th minute VAR confirmed PK for Ola is how he won. So if the first game was a bit of a confusion over the fact that it's 3-0, we had to crush them, and we actually really didn't. A 1-0 penalty granted by VAR is another sort of this team was really bad last year, and we just barely made it happen. But again, 6 points from 2, 6 points from 6, you can't complain. You're feeling good.
Yeah. But by the way, I was curious, speaking of Moses Nyman, has he had any appearances?
Probably not, right?
For his new side. The answer to that question is no. So no appearances since he went there this summer. The team itself, what is their record? I'll look up the record right now. But they yeah, not a good. I mean, he's still young, so maybe it changes a little bit, but it's not. It's sad, I guess. And I mean, let's talk about Moses Nyman. It's really sad that he becomes kind of. I mean, I guess the team got some value for him, but he becomes another guy who we had higher hopes for, and has just completely sort of fallen off. If we can be frank here. You would have expected him to at least have gotten, considering he has at least some professional experience, you would have expected him to get some appearances. Now his team itself is actually first place in the second division right now. So they are challenging for a spot in the first division in Belgium. So they might be competing to it a little bit.
Good luck to him if he's not going to get any minutes in the second division if the team does get promoted. Good luck to him for breaking into the roster then when they have to spend more money to improve the team. But that's a problem for next year and a problem for not us because he's not a DC United player anymore.
Yeah.
DC United's luck started to turn with the coldest game I've ever attended in my life, where my skin was my frozen in my bones. Watching the highlights, I realized that Tony Lamarcy was on the call. I didn't know that obviously because I was there, dying and freezing. First very dumb goal of the year conceded, coming off of a deflection. Shaqiri assisting Ivanov and DC United being lazy, marking across, allowing Bornstein to score wide open in the second half. 2-0 loss, still on 6 points. That game was the first game that we conceded and the first game in which I believe the offense generated very few shots on goal, starting sort of realizing where the opportunities were not coming. Gressel was not very effective on the wings against his podcast teammate. It just didn't work out for them. And Chicago was not seen to be a challenge, not seen to be a great team. At the time, there was a lot of buzz around Shaqiri. The rest of the season would bear out that was not legitimate buzz, and in fact that he can't carry a team all by himself. But that was the first loss of the season.
A lot of I want to say kinsmanship, a lot of similarities between what DC United has done and what Chicago have done. Spending at least a little bit more money, certainly on their roster, but lack of identity, lack of commitment. And they're paying for it just like we are in a lot of ways. So
the bad times continued in Toronto, despite DC taking the early lead with a Knaus goal and a Nigel Roberto assist. So both of those are collector's items, and you don't see a lot of them, particularly this season. DC United gave the lead back 10 minutes later with Bradley assisting a Pozuelo goal from close range, and Toronto got the win with another goal from close range, this time from Osorio. This would be Bill Hamid's first very bad game of the year. Sort of the word starting to turn a little bit there for him. So still on 6 points. Negative drumbeat continues with a 1-0 loss to Atlanta at the Mercedes-Benz with a 94th minute goal from Marilino Moreno. That game sucked. That was also Chris Durkin's first appearance back with DC United. So this was I think that is a 3-game losing streak. Yes, 3-game losing streak for Hernan Losada. And there was only one more to come. There was only one more to come before the hammer swung. The final straw had to be the 3-2 loss at home to Austin FC. The game started brightly. You'll remember this game. Everyone will remember this game. With a goal for Ola Kamara in the 26th minute off a redirected Gressel cross, getting a yellow card for taking off a shirt, celebrating the loss of a loved one. I think it was his grandfather. That would matter shortly after because Kamara scores a second goal, waved off. He scores again. So the 2-0 lead happens at that point, but then he tackles Diego Fagundes from behind on the end line for no reason, getting a second yellow, leading DC United to have to play with 10 men for 45 minutes. I remember going insane that happened. I wasn't concerned yet at that time. I was there, was not concerned yet, but I was like, that could be bad. This is foreshadowing. This is not what we want to do at halftime. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, so this was the game. If I remember how it was like 80 minutes.
Correct.
You sort of felt like, okay, this is the DC we've been waiting for. If I remember my feelings towards that game, it was the team actually generating chances, the team actually turning the XG into their favor. Like I don't think they had ever been. I don't think the XG had favored him all season in any game. They always were behind. And this was the first game where you felt like, okay, for those first 80 minutes, I should add you. Those were the first 80 minutes where you were like, okay, this is the Lasada ball team that we saw last season. It's still in there. If that game ends 2-0, I think I'm leaving thinking, okay, we're turning a corner here.
Yep.
We're maybe going back to a lot of the same old people, but we're starting to turn the corner a little bit. And then it was 10 minutes of just absolute unmitigated disaster.
80th minute off a corner, 85th off a cross, 90th minute, the ball just goes through Hamid's body and through his legs and through his hands, causing that was a bummer in the stadium. And for those of you who are watching the show now, cannot believe that they're reliving the Austin loss again. Me neither, but we did it, and we're here, and it sucked. That was Bill Hamid's, I think, last game. Maybe that's not the case, but that might have been his last game for the club.
Jeez.
Unfortunate.
If that's the case, wow.
I could be wrong. But I think that's correct. Yeah, that was obviously the impetus for a conversation that happened at the club where they were getting rid of Hernan Losada, but not before a 3-0 win on the road against Flower City FC, where Hernan wanted to bring a recovering Steve Birnbaum to play in the cold, with the player reportedly going up the chain to say, I'm not going. I don't want to go. This is not right to go. And that would be the last game that Losada oversaw, being fired on 420. Nice. He was there for 15 months. His record was 16, 19, and 5, which is not great. And then the second reign of Chad Ashton begins.
That by the way was not his that was not his last game. No.
He didn't start the next game. Ashton started John Kempen.
Yeah. He did not start the next game. His last game was May 29th against the Red Bulls.
So 3-0 or the
4-1, yes.
Cool. Well, on that note, we're going to take a quick break here for a short commercial, and we'll be right back in about 30 seconds. We are excited to be part of Podcast Row at the 2023 United Soccer Coaches Convention in Philadelphia from January 11th to the 15th. The convention is the ultimate event for soccer coaches, administrators, and fans of the beautiful game. Ignite your passion through captivating presentations, on-field demonstrations, exhibits, and networking events for any coach. Whether you're attending alone or bringing the whole coaching staff, there's no better place for soccer coaches to learn, network, and experience the latest trends in soccer education. Visit www.unitedsoccercoachesconvention.org to register. Come join us as we celebrate our passion for the beautiful game. Thank you for sticking with us through that commercial break. So, where we last left you, that the Chad Ashton's the interim Chad had reigned again for the second time for DC United. I will tell you, at that point, vibes were not great. We were not. I mean, obviously, the story about Hernan hit everyone at once, saying what this is insane. How could this happen? And slowly, over the course of days and weeks and months, information would sort of leak out around his behavior with the players, his behavior with the staff. There was a meeting that happened with supporter group. By the way, I think in hindsight, a mistake to have done it this way. DC United gets a small group of supporter group leaders and has an off the record conversation about what actually happened and what Hernan actually did, and made them promise not to say anything about it. And they didn't. Surprisingly, for the most part, that information was really well kept and we didn't hear about it. So I think that was a mistake to do. I think that maybe there was a weird conversation about keeping Hernan Losada's job prospects positive and really worrying about sort of his future instead of maybe worrying about the fans continuing to support the club that they support and understand that he was let go for what is cause, at least in the minds of the club. Surely there's some legal reasoning behind it, but the Chad Ashton reign did not begin positively. And I will take credit for asking him in his first media availability that next week about sort of the vibes and sort of like after what was reported to be a negative locker room culture, what's important. And he stressed in direct words, I just want the guys to have fun, which was unfortunate, I think, for him and for some of the fans.
Yeah, I mean, we all go back to. I guess we all go back to the moment when we saw the firing, and I mean, we first saw the news clip or the news clip that broke that Hernan Losada had been fired. You know, I think we all were. I mean, I was shocked. I mean, and it also was. It was sort of an admission of failure. At that point, it was pretty low as far as the team goes. And you know, I just don't. Yeah, it was just bad.
It felt like
was
we were
bad
hitting a
vibes.
reset button.
Yeah, it felt like a reset button. I guess, you know, the hope then was, you know, Chad Ashton. Well, the team looked kind of good in 2020, and that turned out to be just absolutely wrong. And you know, maybe it was like, and things started kind of on a high note with the game, with his first game.
They did.
Taxi. I mean, also, I think the biggest thing about this whole situation with Hernan was, like, you know, we were all kind of waiting, you know, Taxi at this point. I think we kind of missed that whole storyline about the team signing and bringing in Taxi. So, I mean, the idea was that Taxi, you know, Taxi would be the answer. And in the first few games, I think in that Austin game, he looked good. And I think in this New England game, it looked like he looked fantastic. I mean, it looked like he exactly what DC needed, and maybe this was going to be a way to kind of get this team kind of afloat and on the right path. And I think after that, New England involved in this game. You know, I think a couple good appearances he had, you know, kind of later on in the season, I think won him the you know, the All-Star ballot. So it seemed at that point to be, okay, maybe there is something, you know, maybe there is something here for this team, and maybe they can sort of turn this around. Maybe they can keep themselves alive. We get to the next off season and we you know, we get a new player, but it just kept getting worse and worse. It just really was false hope and then worse and worse. So, but that was kind of the first false hope after Hernan Losada was let go.
Yep. I called Taxi the toy Hernan never really got to play with.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in hindsight, you look at one of the reasons why they was let go is like player safety in some ways, but also just like general player satisfaction. The level of contentment in the locker room was so low that they had to make the move right then. You saw that the performances did not get noticeably better. Mm-hmm. I wonder if there was some way to have a sort of intervention with Hernan and the club and the players and like and Jason and everybody comes in the room like, listen, Hernan, here's what's going to change. I think that there's a possibility that his coaching with Taxi, I mean, so we'll never know, but like I feel like potentially we could have gotten more points on the season without making the coaching change. Obviously, there were reasons to do it, and they're legitimate and valid. But part of me wonders, sort of, with the money that was later brought to bear on this club, where would Hernan have been? Who knows? We'll never know. It's just like Ben Olsen is also getting sort of a revisionist look at how would Ben have done with a team that would spend $6 million on Christian Benteke. Like, imagine that. Yeah. Hamdi Salihi's later. Imagine that. So let's continue on this march because it's still very early in the year. We are at 9 points here at the beginning of the season. Taxi scores twice. Estrada scores all in the first half. Buxa scores late in the second half, so we're thinking, here we go again. But John Kempen made 7 saves in his first start of the year. I remember speaking to him in the post game. He was very excited. We're like, oh man, how do we get this guy? This is great. Classic small sample size stuff, but we were very excited about that. So 9 points there. DC United went on the road a week later to Lower.com Field, which I think is a funny name, so I had to make sure I put it in here instead of MAPFRE or Columbus Crew Stadium, and got absolutely dominated, 3-0. Just a bad game. Pedro Santos is a free kick past Kempen where he's just looking. Etienne torched Gressel up the line, slotted far post, and Nagby scored a volley from 25 yards out to finish it up. Kempen didn't have much to do in any of them, but they did not challenge whatsoever in this game. I don't want to say like sort of, yeah, this was the beginning of the bad here for Chad Ashton and him.
This is where it was like, I think I saw one person saw New England as like a dead cat bounce, and it was certainly a dead cat bounce. It was, just awful.
There was one more like mini bounce the next game. Houston comes to town in the rain. Taxi again. It's all him, the offense. When we talked about it when Taxi came here, like they didn't really have a plan. Gressel was supposed to be the plan. Brad Smith was supposed to be the plan. Both of them were ineffective, and there was no until Taxi got there was no way to score goals. So in this, Taxi took control, scored a bouncing volley off a Gressel corner, which if you remember how that went, it was sort of a weird volley. It's sort of an arcing volley, but it went in. And then in the 43rd, Taxi handled the Brad Smith cross and converting and taking has an off the record conversation about what actually happened and what Hernan actually did, and made them promise not to say anything about it. And they didn't. Surprisingly, like for the most part, that information was really well kept and we didn't hear about it. So I think that was a mistake to do. I think that maybe there was a weird conversation about keeping Hernan Losada's job prospects positive and really worrying about sort of his future instead of maybe worrying about the fans continuing to support the club that they support and understand that he was let go for what his cause, at least in the minds of the club. Surely there's some legal reasoning behind it, but the Chad Ashton reign did not begin positively. And I will take credit for asking him in his first media availability that next week about sort of the vibes and sort of like after what was reported to be a negative locker room culture, what's important. And he stressed in direct words, I just want the guys to have fun, which was unfortunate, I think, for him and for some of the fans.
Yeah, but I mean, we all go back to the moment when we saw the firing, and I mean, we first saw the news clip that broke that Hernan Losada had been fired. You know, I think we all were. I mean, I was shocked. I mean, and it also was. It was sort of an admission of failure. At that point, it was pretty low as far as the team goes. And you know, I just don't. It was just bad.
It was like bad vibes. A reset button.
Yeah, it felt like a reset button. I guess, you know, the hope then was, you know, Chad Ashton. Well, the team looked kind of good in 2020, and that turned out to be just absolutely wrong. And you know, maybe it was like, and things started kind of on a high note with the game, with his first game.
They did.
Taxi. I mean, also I think the biggest thing about this whole situation with Hernan was like, you know, we were all kind of waiting, you know, Taxi at this point. I think we kind of missed that whole storyline about the team signing and bringing in Taxi. So I mean, the idea was that Taxi would be the answer. And in the first few games, I think in that Austin game, he looked good. And I think in this New England game, it looked like he looked fantastic. I mean, it looked like he exactly what DC needed. And maybe this was going to be a way to kind of get this team kind of afloat and on the right path. And I think after that New England game, I kind of left saying, well, Taxi looks like the real deal. It's great to see him involved in this game. You know, I think a couple good appearances he had, you know, kind of later on in the season, I think won him the All-Star ballot. So it seemed at that point to be, okay, maybe there is something here for this team, and maybe they can sort of turn this around. Maybe they can keep themselves alive. We get to the next off season and we get a new player, but it just kept getting worse and worse. It just really was false hope and then worse and worse. So, but that was kind of the first false hope after Hernan Losada was let go.
Yep. I called Taxi the toy Hernan never really got to play with.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in hindsight, you look at one of the reasons why they was let go is like like player safety in some ways, but also just like general player satisfaction. The level of contentment in the locker room was so low that they had to make the move right then. You saw that the performances did not get noticeably better.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if there was some way to have a sort of intervention with Hernan and the club and the players and like and Jason and everybody comes in the room like, listen, Hernan, here's what's going to change. I think that there is a possibility that his coaching with Taxi, I mean, so we'll never know, but like I feel like potentially we could have gotten more points on the season without making the coaching change. Obviously, there were reasons to do it, and they're legitimate and valid. But part of me wonders, sort of, with the money that was later brought to bear on this club, where would Hernan have been? Who knows? We'll never know. It's just like Ben Olsen is also getting sort of a revisionist look at how would Ben have done with a team that would spend $6 million on Christian Benteke. Like, imagine that. Hamdi Salihi's later. Imagine that. So let's continue on this march because it's still very early in the year. We are at 9 points here at the beginning of the season. Taxi scores twice. Estrada scores all in the first half. Buxa scores late in the second half, so we're thinking, here we go again. But John Kempen made 7 saves in his first start of the year. I remember speaking to him in the post game. He was very excited. We're like, oh man, how do we get this guy? This is great. Classic small sample size stuff, but we were very excited about that. So 9 points there. DC United went on the road a week later to Lower.com Field, which I think is a funny name, so I had to make sure I put it in here instead of Mapfre or Columbus Crew Stadium, and got absolutely dominated. 3-0. Just a bad game. Pedro Santos is a free kick past Kempen where he's just looking. Etienne torched Gressel up the line, slotted far post, and Nagby scored a volley from 25 yards out to finish it up. Kempen didn't have much to do in any of them, but they did not challenge whatsoever in this game. I don't want to say like sort of, yeah, this was the beginning of the bad here for Chad Ashton and him.
This is where it was like, I think I saw one person saw New England as like a dead cat bounce, and it was certainly a dead cat bounce. It was, just awful.
There was one more like mini bounce the next game. Houston comes to town in the rain. Taxi again. It's all him, the offense. When we talked about it when Taxi came here, like they didn't really have a plan. Gressel was supposed to be the plan. Brad Smith was supposed to be the plan. Both of them were ineffective, and there was until Taxi got there was no way to score goals. So in this, Taxi took control, scored a bouncing volley off a Gressel corner, which if you remember how that went, it was sort of a weird volley. It's sort of an arcing volley, but it went in. And then in the 43rd, Taxi handled the Brad Smith cross and converting and taking 3 points. That's at 12 points right there. So that was a random win. We really want to talk about where the season turned bad. I think it's probably first is the Hernan, so the Austin loss. This is another one that's very impactful. Flashpoint for the supporters and people that really care about this club. I would say like the hyper serious supporters. Your casuals didn't care about this, but DC United faced the Red Bulls in the Open Cup. Their only likely chance for silverware for this club against a longtime rival. Chad Ashton comes out in the press and says, we're going to focus on the season. We're going to de-emphasize the Open Cup. I would say they regret this decision, potentially.
Yeah.
A loud United-esque roster went out and lost 3-0. It just was awful. If you look at that roster, Chris Durkin and Romo are the only players that you're like, okay, yeah, no, they're players, and everybody else is just Jackson Hopkins. I believe makes his first appearance for DC United in this game. Or not, that was not his first appearance, but DC wouldn't win another game for 7 matches. So the Open Cup prioritization thing did not work. It's just did not work. Clearly, the rivalry has taken some knocks over the years, and isn't what it once was. But just a really disappointing sort of turn, and to have it so usually coaches will run out like a half and half lineup when they're expecting to sort of like, all right, yeah, I know we have fixture congestion, so we're not going to really put all our chips in. But they were like, no, we really don't care. We don't care at all. Look how much we don't care. And it showed, and that was a mistake.
And the funny the sad thing is like I'm pretty sure if I remember in that first half they kind of weathered the storm a little bit,
I
and
think it
so
was zero. I think it was 0-0 at half. I think
it almost would have been perfect to say, okay, we the idea was we're going to throw these guys out there. Let's just, if they can keep it close, then we bring in some of our big guns against some tired players, and we try to get this. But I mean, literally, I think even the subs bench, there was maybe one or two other guys, and by then, I think by the time he was even looking to do subs, it was dead. I mean, this was, I think, a moment. This was a moment in which, it was okay. Now you have to go out, and if you're gonna this team, you got to get this team in the playoffs. You're basically selling out the rest of everything with the idea of making the playoffs and at that time, I mean, the season was, I mean, you're coming off, a bad loss on the road, but 2 wins at home. So, I mean, at the time you're thinking, okay, maybe, again, maybe Chad Ashton can sort of shepherd this season into at least being competitive. They said they were going to give him till the end of the year, but maybe they look to the off season and, they have something that they can kind of build on. I think Chad Ashton at this point was like, this is my one opportunity to get a full-time head coaching job. And he made a choice to go do that. And I think ultimately what follows after this is ultimately what cost him the job. Even if there was agreement, I wonder if there was maybe some people in the front office like, hey, we you can rest some guys, but I mean, this is still a chance to win a trophy. But you make the call here. And he said, nope, I'm just going to go full on in. I mean, it seemed he was saying, I don't care about this. I want to. We have a crucial stretch coming up. We need to make the playoffs. And he I mean, we'll get into it. Absolutely, just falling flat on his face.
they very didn't do that. They absolutely did not do that. The next game after the Open Cup debacle was Inter Miami away.
Mm-hmm.
Miami. So you're going to notice a theme here. From this point on, you're going to notice. I'll ask you to notice a commonality about the goals conceded at the end of the year, and we'll see if we all sort of understand it. So Miami scores first with Leonardo Campana roasting Brendan Hines-Ike at the near post. Second goal came off of a corner with Damian Lowe, who will come up later, scoring a header after Michael Estrada got in Donovan Pines' way. I don't know if you'll remember that one, but Donovan Pines would have cleared that, but for some reason Michael Estrada was in his zone. So Estrada giveth as well. This is where he flicked on a cross from Gressel, and Taxi converts it with a tip. So that is a 2-1 lead at the break. Unfortunately, after the break, Pines was beaten in the open field for speed by Ariel Lassiter, who is fast. We'll be honest about that. And Hamid was beaten near post, 3-1. No, I guess 2-1. DC United would be able to salvage a point with Ola Kamara scoring after great footwork and dribbling by Taxi and a flick on by Canals. Chris Durkin gets a red card in stoppage time, and that was that. So that's 13 points. New York City FC, there's no highlights of this one. There are some games that were so bad, DC United was just like, we're not going to put the highlights on our website. Not going to do it. A game shortly that I would not blame them for is on that list. New York City FC beats DC United the following week with goals from Alexander Callens and a PK by Tata Castellanos, one of his last acts, I believe, before leaving. With DC United getting no shots on goal. That is another trend that I will come back to a couple times this year. Romo's debut. I remember some weirdos saying this game was not that bad, but I was there and it was horrible. And I'm glad I didn't watch the highlights of it. Next, 13 points. The rare point for the Ashton regime came about in the next game against Toronto. This game is notable because Edison Flores did the rare, useful, and productive thing, scoring a goal. Scoring the first goal off of an Estrada cross in the first 10 minutes. Do you remember him scoring in this game or at all?
I do. I do remember that. I remember the cross over the middle and a nice finish from him.
It was nice. It was like that was never a run he ever made, ever. I've never seen him make that sort of like that late run into the box. Anyway, remember because
this is going to become I'm going to look at how these guys are doing now. 17 appearances for Atlas, 2 assists.
No goals. Not great. The lead would not last, with Ayo Akinola taking advantage of a stretched out-of-shape defense and ripping a shot past Hamid. So Hamid obviously still playing here. After the half, Taxi muscled out a shot, which was finished by a tap-in by Estrada, in probably his second best game in a DC United uniform. Nothing gold can stay, however, as Bill Hamid somehow deflects a shot coming straight at him from the end line towards the front of the goal, right to Osorio, who finished it with no. I don't remember. That was another one I was there for, and I remember. So Hamid is at his near post, facing the end line. The shot comes right at his chest. It somehow goes directly right to the middle of the six, and is easily put away. He was having a rebound control problem much of the season.
Yeah,
that was very obvious.
I mean, I think this is truly. I don't know if he's had issues with that. If that's just kind of his nature. I do think there were some cases in which he would make that type of move, and then he would have the ability to then move his body to then make the next save,
bail himself out.
This is, I think, when we all started to sort of really just see that Bill Hamid had finally sort of regressed fully. He was not the same keeper that was going to keep this team in games. It was for my mind is when I said, okay, next year this team has to find a new goalkeeper because Bill Hamid just isn't cutting it anymore.
Yep. Bill continued his streak of weird rebounds resulting in goals in Harrison, New Jersey the next week, gifting a goal to Linares. He doubled the lead. Linares had a good game. This is a game. All right. All I'll tell you about this game is if you remember it. This was the game of Red Bull scoring worldies all over the place. Multiple volleys from outside the box, unsavable. So the first one was Hamid's fault. The second and third were not. He doubled the lead later in the second half with a volley inside the box after a failed headed clearance. An even better volley outside the box from Lewis Morgan took it to 3-0. I recommend if you go back and watch any goals that were scored against us this season, that one by Morgan was the best one that was scored. It was ridiculous. Ola scored a garbage goal in the 87th that was immediately canceled out by an own goal by Tony Alfaro in the 90th. So 4-1. It should be noted that DC United were wearing the cursed white jersey with peach numbers, so they got what they deserved. And this, you were saying, is Bill Hamid's last game, correct? In a DC United uniform.
Yep. He would pick up an injury.
What an inauspicious, or I guess auspicious way to end his career. That's very unfortunate. But it was just the way it was. That's 14 points, folks. That's May. That's end of May, right?
End of May, yes.
Yeah, so end of May on 14 points. Not too much to talk about in the loss in Chicago. Taxi was 1 inch too short to get a header on frame in the 70th minute, and Fabian Herbers accidentally scores a game-winning goal. I don't know if you remember that one. It was sort of a accidental volley from the top of the box. No shots on goal for DC United once again. Blah.
So some of these games I have strong memories of. This is a game actually I have no memory.
I don't blame you.
Memory of this game.
I don't blame you. Also, no highlights of this game on DC United's website.
Yeah.
Next game was a nationally televised game for DC United, so you know what that means. That means they did not win because they don't on national television. Embarrassment is what happens. DC United lost 3-1 at home to Nashville, giving up a goal to Daniel Lovitz and a pair to Hani Mukhtar, who owns DC United and a lot of the league, by the way. He's pretty good, but DC United specifically. And go ahead.
Yeah, I was saying I remember this game not because if anything happened, was because this is a game I was supposed to go to, and then I caught the COVID, as they say, and was unable.
Taxi scored also in this game.
What's that?
I said Taxi also scored in another losing effort, which is a vibe. You'll see this as he scores 12. There's a lot of those, so that's still 14 points. The next game was probably the highlight of the year. So we were saying before. Talk about a time in which there were some things where DC United was kind of good. Maybe you could say it's this game. It was insane. Away to Orlando, Taxi scores a hat trick in a half. And half of the goals hadn't even been scored after that in this game. Torres and Cara score goals to make it tight. And then Camarnie Smith collects an errant pass, scores his first MLS goal. We're thinking, all right, that's good. And then Orlando get a PK that Pato scores. And then Nigel Robertha scores his first goal of the season on another errant cross at the top of the box. 8 goals, 3 points on the road for DC United, brings them to 17. That game was insane. It's another one to go. Yeah. That's another one to go back and check out because it was kind of great. And then you go from probably the greatest high to the lowest low. Calamity, 7-0. A game so bad it got a replacement coach fired, basically. 4 days later, after the 7-0 loss, DC United brings back Wayne Rooney to be their manager. The loud slap noise you heard at the corporate office at Audi was Jason Levin hitting the panic button and giving Wayne whatever he wanted to take the gig and take the heat off for just 5 minutes. I don't even go back and talk about the goals because A, DC United memory hold the highlights and did not put it up there. B, Carranza scored a hat trick. I believe Bedoya scored 2. Everybody scored. Everybody that could score scored. Again, so bad that it got this team to move again, to pay a third coach.
Do we think, like, I guess what I was trying to say is I was trying to pinpoint what moment in this year did I just 100% lose hope?
Probably then, right?
It had to be in this game. I was like, I thought it was earlier, and maybe it felt like earlier. Maybe it was the Nashville game. Maybe it was, but then of course, then that you're buoyed with the Orlando. This whole season was just, the wins were weird, but every time you got a win, you thought, okay, maybe this is where they can put something together. And it was just false hope, false hope, false hope.
Yep.
False hope all abound. So I think this game against Philly was very much the moment where I was like, this season's over. This team is not making the playoffs. They get Rooney in, and my thought for when they brought in Wayne Rooney was, please be better. And we'll get into whether they were better or not.
Right. By the way, this show is rapidly approaching a 2-parter. So those of you who are watching live will get to hear it all at once. I'm pretty sure that Ted and I are going to make this 2 episodes because we're halfway through the season and we still have to talk about plays. Oh, yes. All right. The Rooney magic, though he wasn't able to officially coach the team yet, was in effect almost immediately with Columbus coming to town. The crew this is the game in which I was walking to the stadium from a very far parking lot, parked illegally, and I walked back and forth 2 times to try to pay, and I missed the first goal. But crew took the lead off of what I deem a FIFA cheat code curler by Cucho, where there's just no way to save it, nothing he can do. Taxi shortly winning a penalty like a cagey professional, confirmed by VAR, and of course he scored it. No, he didn't. He pulled it wide on the ground in an embarrassing fashion, and that was sort of just like, oh, that's great, excellent. He'd score a few minutes later to sort of exercise the demons on that and level him out, knocking in a cross and tying it up. But Cucho scored again in the 82nd minute, scoring a header from about 4 inches away from the goal by a Zelarayan cross. But DC United did not die in this evening, with Ola jabbing in a loose ball on the goal line and saving a rare point, bringing the total to 18. So that was not the game. The Orlando game later that we'll talk about was the game that I was walking to. This was at night. But Rooney magic, point. He was not yet able to be on the sidelines. I believe he was doing training sessions and had like a radio and was being seen at the next game in like in the booth. The next game, by the way,
was in his consulting
right,
role.
Correct. His visa was not squared away yet, so he was not working.
Yeah.
Next game, another loss. 2 games. This is another no highlights. 2 goals by Reynoso in Minnesota and no shots on goal. 3rd time I've said that so far. 18 points. After a friendly walloping by Bayern Munich, which I'm not going to get into, and a Julian Gressel trade, which we could talk about for a second, Montreal came to town and did not wait long to take a lead, scoring in the first minute of play with Romel Kyoto scoring once and then again in the 35th minute. Birnbaum scored his first goal of the year, and recent signing Miguel Berry played and did nothing, which is going to be a trend for his entire career at DC United. DC United 5 shots on goal, Montreal 3. The world is a vampire. No points awarded. Let's talk about the Julian Gressel trade. So we won't get into the details because we talked about it when it happened, but there was conversation at the time about Julian Gressel being ineffective mostly. His defense sort of his defense wasn't great. He wasn't getting the assists he got last year. The focus really was about the way the trade happened, right? The sort of the way it was broken to Steve Goff almost the exact same time as Julian Gressel. The way it happened, sort of, I guess there was a conversation about potentially a contract extension, and he was sort of didn't know anything that was going on, and then the trade just happened. What do you think in the postmortem of this? Obviously, this was about getting money on the salary cap available. What do we think about the way this trade went down and the end of it? Like, what's the end result of what that trade was for you?
For me, it was. I think I came back from it. I think the team really wishing that, because I have to imagine that this happens all over the league. Players are traded. The Billy Bean baseball movie, when he talks about trading, it's like you just go in and tell them they're being traded. This guy will handle the details. Have a nice day. Goodbye.
Yep.
And the callousness of the idea of the trade and how it happens and how it comes together, I think happens all over the league. And I think for the first time, really, we got to hear about how completely heartless it can sound, especially when you're moving a guy halfway across the country.
with a baby.
What's that?
With a baby.
With a baby who's just born, a life he has built,
Mhm.
in 3 years. I mean, he would tell you, and I think he said, hey, I understand it's the nature of the game. I just was expected that I would be treated with a little more respect. You
And he was not.
you gave respect. Honestly, I wonder how he looks at, look at how much respect they gave Paul Arriola. Granted, they wanted to keep him. It's a little different, but they gave him, the respect. They didn't give him a heads up. I think the worst part of the whole nature is him not knowing, him finding out, Golf tweeting it out before his wife was even known. So his wife finds out the information from Golf. I think that is the worst, has to be the worst part about all of this.
Yep.
If I'm being truthful, that was really kind of the, geez, like, what are we doing here? Like, we can't just wait. You can't even tell him, hey, Golf already has this. He's got contacts. We want to make this trade known. Can you please, we've made this trade. Can you call your wife now, call your family now, let them know, this is the nature of the game. It's going to get out. They didn't even do that. It was just kind of
wait
like
5 seconds before telling Steve. Like,
yeah, it's
like what is the benefit in being fast with that? Anyway,
that was the first moment where I'm like, I'm not so sure about this Rooney thing anymore.
yeah.
Like, I was all high on this Rooney thing. Here he's going to come, he's going to centralize things. It's at least something different. It's the team being at least somewhat bold, not hiring a MLS retread next season, not just seeing out this season. Maybe we'll see something interesting. He's got connects. He's got contacts. It might work. It might completely blow up in our face. This was the first moment where I was like, I'm really not sure this is going to work out. And it got worse from there, honestly.
And it was being sold immediately that Jackson Hopkins was like ready to go. Ready to come in for the spot, which over the course of the season, it was not the case. I think if you look at it overall, I think he's certainly got a future, but he was not ready to step in for Julian Gressel and contribute in a similar way. We weren't using those players. Wingers are out. So that's part of the move. And I want to make sure I didn't mention this at the beginning of the season. Don't forget the Paul Arriola trade was insane in that it was a multi-week saga where Paul Arriola is tweeting question emojis or gifts about the fact about like, oh, I didn't know I rejected a move there. He was giving interviews in Spanish on ESPN Deportes about wanting to go and play for, was it Club America?
Club America, yes.
Yeah, so it was wild. Like, obviously, we're never going to get the full details there. It was from what we understand about Hernan Losada and not wanting to play for him anymore, and also some family issues. But that was also wild. So the whole season has been a bit of a craziness. We'll keep going.
Yeah, I mean, I think this again. I think this represents too. This represents Dave Cass. I think this also. I think this has been a year where every single flaw that exists for Dave Casper was big old microscope was shined on, and this is one of them. I think he's a wheeler and dealer. I think this is how he's like, I have treated this no differently than, I'm trying to remember like a player from way back when that we traded, or that, I mean, there was all the moves about Dwayne De Rosario. I think that was maybe the big one.
and the poster teardown from RFK.
From the poster teardown from RFK. There have been times in the past where like he has acted this way. So I think this shined a big old microscope. And the most, like, I'd say, like, insane part is literally Julian Gressel essentially burning down the team on his podcast, being like, I don't know what direction this team has. Stuff he probably was thinking on the side. Like, what's the direction here? We got rid of Losada. We got rid of, we go with Chad Ashton. Now we're going with Rooney. Like, and I think he was saying on the inside, like, I feel like the team is directionless. And I think this year he's been proven absolutely right. Absolutely right. We also got some insights into the differences between Vancouver and DC and the training center. We'll get, maybe, I don't know if we have time to get into all that, but that was insightful to
So
say the
some
least.
cattiness. I tried to get a jersey signed by a mutual, and he told me that Julian has no interest in looking at anything DC United on it ever again.
Oof.
So that jersey will not be
Wow.
signed. It will remain in my closet. So there's that. So he was really, really mad. Okay.
Yeah.
Continues. Remember when I said that DC United only beats Orlando and New York City FC? Luckily, Orlando would come back to town, and they got beat in a very dramatic fashion. This is the game that I was missing most of it, walking back and forth in the rain. Rooney's second debut for DC United began with a ninth-minute goal conceded, scored by Junior Urso. This was the one where Romo was just floating around in the box, and Urso chipped him from from the 18, basically. That was a thing. That was the game where Romo. It was the first time that Wayne was directing Romo to play sweeper keeper, and he did not have the skill set for it. It didn't really go well for him. Nothing doing until stoppage time in the second half, with Durkin scoring a side-footed shot to the roof of the net to tie the game. I think that was 90+1. That was his first goal of the year. But because this is Wayne Rooney and he hates Orlando, DC United scored their best goal of the year, a laser cross by Ravel Morrison in his debut to Kamarni Smith, who one time left foot crosses to Taxi, who stabs it in. Pandemonium, cats and dogs, hope. I know. If you go back and listen to the show after this, Ted and I were like, I mean, maybe he's gonna do it. Maybe he's gonna make this team, like, make them believe. It's all just a matter of belief. It's not about the players. Ravel Morrison comes in, makes 5,000 passes backwards and sideways, playing in front of the back four. We're like, what the hell is happening? But that was the beginning of Wayne on the sidelines, and sort of, again, maybe another small peak for a season mostly of valleys.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess. Yeah. It's hard to look back on this one. I think everything was just looking so bad for this team, if I'm being honest. So
yeah. August begins with a beatdown in Charlotte to the expansion team. Scoring began as Sergio Romo punched a ball directly into Steve Birnbaum's face into the net. Do you remember that goal?
trying not to, but
Yeah, that one was funny. That was a good one to watch. It continued in the second half with DP Swiderski tapping in a rebound off of a Jordi Reyna shot, doubling the lead. And finally, Quinn McNeil scores off yet another rebound from Romo, this time from a Swiderski shot. 3-0 on 21 points. That was a Sergio Romo's bad game for sure. Did not like that one at all. The next week, Red Bull came to town, and it seemed like neither team had a serious interest in winning, with no goals and 3 shots on goal combined between the two teams. That MLS managed to cut 7 minutes of highlights into this game made me think that they just took random chunks from the game and put it on there. 22 points. That was a draw. It happened. That was a very horrible game to be at. That was at Audi Field. United went on the road to Foxborough with Renix almost taking the early lead with a fancy trick at the near post, only to miss it like Balotelli in the U.S. Or that was like an exhibition game where he pulls like a Panenka, like a running Panenka, and misses. The only goal of the game would be scored early in the first half, with DC United legend Tommy McNamara playing in. Brandon Bai crosses the ball to Carlos Heel. Heel rounded the keeper in the second half, but hits the post. So aside from a few long distance shots by Ravel, DC United were not dangerous again. No points. No points were awarded. 22 points still. United has their first and only West Coast trip of the year to LAFC, and United decided to get a million yellow cards in the first 60 minutes, including Birnbaum getting his second at 60 minutes. If you remember this game, DC United was like hanging on. It was Ochoa had his first start for the club, David Ochoa, who came to the club by a trade to RSL for some game. Had his first start at home. We were kind of wondering where he was, but it was about fitness because he had not played all season. But he had three saves, and they were all great saves. But Opoku, who's a rookie, comes on in the 61st minute and would score 5 minutes later after Ochoa came out to stop Arango, who was running in on goal, and he slipped the ball to Opoku to finish it off. United almost scores. Taxi hits the post from 25 yards, but unluckily does not happen. Ochoa making a few other saves. United loses again, 22 points. But this was Ochoa's first game. Gave us an opportunity to sort of see what we had in him. I think, we were optimistic about him from the start. We knew he had talent, but it was a question of like, where is this guy at? Is he going to make this team better? He didn't make the team better. I think we could talk about that too, but he on his own, he performed pretty well. Did he make the team better?
So here's the thing about David Ochoa. I look at this game against LAFC, And again, if you are judging whether he made the team better on whether maybe they get more wins or maybe they get more points, I mean, I think this was kind of a run where this team was. It went from disastrously bad to losing 3-0, 4-0, 4-1 to losing 1-0 to losing to getting maybe eking out a draw. Look at this game against LAFC against the eventual Supporters Shield champions, and they barely eked out a 1-0 win at home. Are you going to argue that this team, if they're playing Rafael Romo in goal, that they're going to this game would be 2-3-0? No question.
Yep.
So he made the team better. This team is just so catastrophically bad. There is almost so much there's only so much he can do. I would not be surprised. The amount of quality chances that this team was just giving other teams. Honestly, I think he did his best in keeping this team in games that maybe they shouldn't have been. Is he at Bill Hamid, peak levels? No, but he's not at. He's basically at where Bill Hamid was at a certain point when he was making some good saves, but also making some big mistakes. I'm trying to remember exactly when, I guess Bill Hamid was 2021. I want to say 2013, 2014 was when, I think that's when he was, because he signed at 17 and I think he started playing really in 2010. So 3 years around then. So, I mean, we have to go back, I think, a little bit to what Bill was like then. And we all saw the talent, and I see the talent in David Ochoa. I think this team is crazy not to push. You're going to have to overpay maybe a little bit for him, but to settle that for next year, I think is so important. And he's right here. He's moved here. He's living here in DC. He's going to be the starter. He's right here. Otherwise you are rolling the dice again on either getting a Romo or finding somebody else and possibly having to burn an international slot.
Yep.
And we have seen how disastrous it is to have a bad goalkeeper. We have seen it. We saw it this year with Rafael Romo. He's here. Go get him. If he moves on to Barcelona, Real Madrid, what can you do? But do not just let him kind of say, no, we're not interested and walk away. Because I really think this is a critical piece. If you want me to have any shred of hope that this team can be even close to better, it's if they can lock down David Ochoa for 3 seasons or 3 years.
Yep, I agree with that. Mm-hmm. Second worst loss of the year comes at the hands of the team who gave them the worst loss of the year. United face Union again. Ravel had a chance to score in the 15th and should have. Taxi hit the post on the 26th, and then Uri scores in the 36th. That's Paulson's fault. Uri wins a penalty. That's Alfaro's fault. Gazdag converting in the 49th. Carranza scores a curler in the 47th. Carranza scores again after a shooting gallery in the box, the 69th. 74th, Carranza is gifted a ball by Romo, who passes it directly to him. And Burke scores in the 6th as Alfaro fails to challenge and just sort of gives up. Awful, and it should have and could have been a much larger loss. After watching the highlights, it could have been 9 or 10. Romo actually made some good saves, and they hit the post a couple times. So, up and down.
This was the game where I said Rafael Romo and Antonio Alfaro should never start. I actually don't think
he didn't. Maybe, that was it.
Yeah, I think that was the game. I was like, this guy's done. And dusted.
And next week was a new week and a new loss for United on the road to Atlanta. But Ochoa continues to be pelted with shots, proving his value to the club. This game will be memorable to some fans for Ravel Morrison's unstoppable first goal from distance in the 46th minute. He takes it down off his chest, one time volleys it. That ended a 496-minute scoreless streak. If you remember that from living it and also sort of counting it, it was the first sort of sad stat of the year. For those who remember the MLSist sad stats. Go ahead.
And again, you talk about what did Ochoa make this team better. Here's a game where I undoubtedly think he made this team better. He kept this team afloat. They picked up a nice goal from, again, this team still lost games because they were bad everywhere else. But David Ochoa kept this team afloat and got them to where they could maybe steal a point. If you improve that defense just a little bit, I think you maybe pick up a few more points.
Yeah, they didn't in this one, unfortunately. So 2 minutes later, Alan Franco scores off a corner. Ola Kamara scores another goal off of a Durkin cross, and United briefly had the lead in the 56th. But then Joseph Martinez came on, and if you remember that was sort of when the game turned around. Minutes later, he scores from a cross, entirely unmarked inside the box. Birnbaum and Nahar just chilling on either side of him, hanging out. And then Atlanta finishes them off with Purata scoring another unmarked header, this time Alfaro being the witness to the goal. So that's I believe, a 3-2 loss in Atlanta. Ochoa played well, but that was Joseph Martinez not being defended was a choice. That was very bizarre. That was so obviously Martinez is, I believe, going to most likely leave Atlanta at the end of the season. He had been benched for multiple games in a row before this one. He did not celebrate his goals. He just sort of stood there, just as like, how are you not playing me? And I don't know how. Certainly, if teams are going to leave him unmarked, he's certainly going to score goals every game.
Was this before or after flipping the table of chicken and rice or something like that?
That was before flipping the table. That might have been another reason why he stayed a little bit longer on the sidelines. United last win of the season. We're not even close. We're close to done, but United's last one of the season came on the last day of August. A rare road victory in New York, although this game was played on an actual soccer field in Harrison versus the baseball field in Yankee Stadium, which DC United will never ever win on. For as long as they continue to play there, DC United will lose there. You can count on it, guarantee it. Scoring got started in the 24th minute with assist machine Chris Durkin, again finding Ola Kamara for another tap-in goal. As all season, the lead did not last. Hebert equalized shortly after, scoring from the top of the box with a shot partially saved by Ochoa before going in. And United take the lead from Birnbaum's second goal off of great service from a free kick by Rodriguez.
His only good free kick service of the entire season.
That's the first time you heard me say his name. This game was also Christian Benteke's debut, and to a player more likely to impact DC United's long-term future, it was also Christian Fletcher's debut. So again, rare last one of the season against New York City FC, bringing them to 25 points. The next two games were scoreless draws against Colorado and RSL. I'm not going to talk about them. 2 points. After that,
games
points.
Where David Ochoa was great.
RSL, a team that is in the playoffs right now and has advanced, did not advance, but made it to the playoffs. Colorado still had about double the points we did. So teams that are better than us getting results on the road. After that, the seemingly annual trip to Kansas City in September resulted in an end to the positive results for the season. Another first goal conceded, and it was once again. I'm spoiling my reveal at the end of this review, but another goal from wide service. Kyrie Shelton from the 6-yard box. Second goal also came from wide service. This time, Volodare scored, shot the ball directly through Ochoa's body, though he was heavily screened, so I would not have blamed him on that. And the third goal was a peach by Daniel Saloy from outside the box, and completely unstoppable. United mustered 2 shots on goal. And now we're going to the flashpoint of the season. I think the following game was a lot. We had Christian Benteke scoring his first and only goal for 2022 for DC United, replete with the LeBron James celebration. Miami equalized in the 38th minute off of, you guessed it, a corner kick after a scramble from a failed clearance punch by Ochoa. This was like his first whiff, I think, at goal problem for him. Campana scored again off of a cross and a defensive failure by first Nahar and then Birnbaum, who was laying on the ground. Taxi shortly after this did the last good thing for DC United he would do in 2022 and maybe forever, scoring from the top of the box. Unfortunately, shortly after that, we know what happened. It is notable that it was exactly a month ago today, and we still have no resolution on the situation from MLS. I thought it was interesting that it was when this show comes out on the 18th, it will be a month from then. No word, no report, nothing. Just nothing. Taxi hanging out in Greece, and we're just sitting here again. Like, I don't know what's going on. So that's that. The winning goal resulted in a bizarre way. Durkin cleared the ball off of Ravel's back. The ball comes up the field, cross to Higuain, who was not going to miss, and another loss for DC United at home. Second to last game of the season, Donovan Pines game. This is the Donovan Pines, not revenge game, but sort of when you knew that Donovan Pines was going to have some problems. 41st minute, Donovan Pines slides a full stretch, pokes the ball past his own keeper. A thing he did not need to do. If you look at the replay, Ochoa was going to collect the ball. Unfortunately, that did not happen. He later got a red card for two-hand pushing a player in the back. Ochoa saves the penalty. It didn't matter, but all of that game was entirely. If you look at the scoring summary, Donovan Pines just all over it. Not having a good time. Last game of the season. I didn't even write this one up. I'm going to go from this one from memory. We had FC Cincinnati at home.
Yes.
This was I'm gonna pull it up so that I get the scores right.
Ravel Morrison only scores worldies, apparently. Really
Yeah,
nice goal.
that's all he does. This was a game that was thinking Lucio Costa was going to score 5. Instead, he just scored 1 in the 6th minute. Ravel Morrison scores the 26th, again, a worldie, like you said. Brenner scores 3 in the first half. First half's a hat trick for Brenner, and Brandon Vasquez finishes off the scoring. Kristen Fletcher scores a nice goal in his first game at home, his first start. Other elements from that are important, not much. Matai Akamboni gets a start and is torched alive. It has, I think his foot mob was a 4.2 or something like that. And Ted Pietro got his first start since July 23rd and was pretty good. DC United finishes 4-9-4 at home, and much worse on the road. And that is that, my friends. DC United, if you know anything from what I said, DC United is horrible at defending set pieces. DC United was horrible at limiting and pressuring the wings from crossing the ball in. Almost all of the goals that they conceded that were not worldies were coming from crosses or from corner kicks or from free kicks. This team did not get much. They got better at it under Rooney, but they were very bad at it, and they didn't improve enough. The team obviously has much to do. But that was, I went through it all. And if you're still here from a live perspective, kudos to you. But that's what this team did. That's why this team said, we put out a poll, I believe, is this the worst season in DC United history? Ted and I are absolutely in agreement that it is.
Oh yeah.
Statistically, it isn't necessarily, but it is undeniably so.
I mean, just this is a case where if you just, the stats do not tell the story. Just from a pure off the field perspective, every single, this almost, again, I think back to the rest of it, every single flaw about this team and how they've operated for the past 20 years now. I mean, not 20 years, but the past like 10, 15 years, however long it's been since this team was actually a competitive fixture, in DC United, in MLS, was exposed this year. Everything was exposed. International signings were exposed. Poor. Other than and then their one good international signing might not even be here next year due to other personal related issues. I mean, just a disaster from all fronts. It almost begs the question, like, how anyone asking me, like, how can you be positive about this team? How can you bring any sort of sense of positivity? I really don't know. I really don't know. I really don't know. Maybe my mind will be changed if this team actually goes out and makes some spending. Maybe this Taxi issue and Taxi being gone might be a blessing in disguise, because then it gives them 2 DP slots that supposedly they can go buy, they can go out and use. But I mean, it really is hard. Like, I think about some of the other seasons that were bad, like 2010 and 2013, and you could see a path forward. You could see here's and maybe, again, 2013 ended with a trophy. So you're like, okay, well, Bill's rounding into form. We know he can be better. This team clearly needs some new pieces. Dwayne De Rosario needs to be, sent away. But, there is a chance for this team to move forward. Now, I really don't know. There's nothing positive. There's nothing to hang your hat on. There's nothing to say, well, we looked less embarrassing and a little more organized, I guess. But I mean, really, honestly, it's impossible to me to feel like the club is even less directionless than it was when it supposedly got a direction in hiring Rooney. Even that's temporary. I think every fan is feeling angst. Like, this doesn't feel like a new plan that this team is ushering in. This feels like a short term, let's see what happens. And yeah, I really don't know. I really don't know what. Mm-hmm.
Steve Goff summed it up, and thanks to RJ and DC to reminding this. With MLS and Second Flight USL Championship regular seasons now over, DC United and Loudoun United finished with a combined 15-43-10 record, 55 of a possible 204 points, with a negative 73 goal differential. So that's not good. And certainly not. It's struggling for optimism, for sure. For the folks that are watching us live, by the way, you are wonderful, and we appreciate you doing that. And if you want to Make sure if you want to join us on Monday nights at 8:30, you should do so on twitch.tv/RFK Refugees and subscribe if you like. We are going to make this a two-parter for our live viewers. And if you're listening to this, this will be the end of this week's episode, and you're going to hear the player breakdowns the following week. So Ted and I don't have to do another show of this. So thank you for joining us live, and continue to stay here. And for everybody else, we'll see you next week talking about the roster. Vamos.